Hey everybody, John Gums here with Dakota Grappler, going live to talk some wrestling tonight. Bill Holton and I, we're going to get some updates for everybody of what's happening in North and South Dakota, a little bit of college wrestling, just going to have some fun, talk wrestling tonight. So what's up, Bill?
Oh, just coming off a big weekend of wrestling. We had everything from the East-West. Out in New Salem was kind of a lot of interesting results and get us set up for the regionals and state tournament coming up. And then up in the northeast part of the state, Larimore had the tournament, and there was a couple interesting things that happened there we can touch on. And I know you were down in Aberdeen for the Lee Wolf, which is always a really good tournament. Looked like it was once again. You got to see Big Nash and
got to see Self Frank again. Got to see
Self Frank.
Yep, March, Kellen March, also some of the top wrestlers in South Dakota, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was some really exciting stuff that happened on the high school side, and then some great big duels on the college level, both Division I and Division II. A lot of stuff to talk about there too. So.
Oh yeah, I tell you what, the Penn State Iowa duel got a lot to talk about there. I was excited for that one all last week until it went down, and so we'll definitely talk about that. And then everybody that's out there watching, Bill's got his green screen up, so he's going to change some pictures. Love it, looks great in the background. He's got some of the wrestling pictures. People can give him a little thumbs up in the comments. I did do something again over on the side. If you look into the comments while watching this, either on YouTube or on Facebook, if you want to join, I did invite a couple coaches to come by, or if some fan actually wants to come in, it'll click in. It's best to work on a Chrome browser. I'm wide open, free if somebody wants to come in and just visit wrestling. We're an open family. I'll guarantee there's some other people in there that want to talk, or if you have a webcam, it's easy to come on and join us. That's what I'm just saying.
Come on in.
You betcha. So we'll start off right away with kind of one of the premier tournaments. Let's talk about the East-West first. We'll talk high school wrestling. Again, I'll introduce myself. I know most people that are watching this know me already, but I am John Gums. I am the owner and editor of Dakota Grappler. I am a lifer when it comes to wrestling. Just love the sport. Talk anything from conditioning, dieting, motivation. I've pretty much ran the gamut along the way. We'll talk results, North Dakota, South Dakota. We'll talk, anything. We've got a message board that you could come and speak your voice, but that's what we're doing here too. Just promote the sport. And then over to my right for me on the screen, that's Bill Holton. I'm how could you say it? Man crush, because he's
don't say that.
Yeah. When it comes to wrestling, I think his heart is in the right place, and I've enjoyed every time I've gotten on with him. So here's Bill.
Yeah, Bill Holton here, just getting to you from Central North Dakota. I'm just a big wrestling fan. I've been around the sport a lot of years. Like I've said in the past, I grew up in the sport, spent some time coaching, spent some time being a wrestling dad, which is a lot of fun, and still getting to do that for a few more years, and spent a lot of time following the sport from the high school level all the way through college and the international level. So just like to talk about it. I think it's fun. I think there's a lot of people out there that get bits and pieces of wrestling through the high school season. They follow a little bit college, and they always are looking for a way to learn more about it. I've kind of learned that over the years that when you're sitting at a tournament, people come up and ask you about this guy or that guy, and I may or may not know about them, but people want to talk about it, and so I think this is an opportunity for a lot of those folks to hear another side of the sport besides what they're seeing at their weekend tournament.
So true. And we had just a wonderful conversation last week with an ex-Lisbon coach, Nick Storhog. So if you have an opportunity to go back, if you haven't seen it, go back over to YouTube. They're preserved over there. You can check out probably about 40 or 50 videos already done talking wrestling. You can spend many, many hours watching it. And so I just really enjoyed it, and I want to thank Nick again for last week.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. Looked like one that went over pretty well. Last time I looked, it had over 1,600 views on Facebook. Starting to build up on the YouTube side. People going back later to watch it, and And I think it's definitely worth your time to, go spend some time to, listen to
the Facebook seemed like the easiest one to do, but having it archived, I like the idea of putting it over on Facebook so that somebody down the road can still see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where it's going to, that first week, I think a lot of people are going to see it on Facebook, but then after that, when people find it, it's going to be on YouTube. So that's the place to go look.
And a good little history of everything. Definitely.
Yep. Absolutely.
So what's your big takeaway from the East-West tournament after looking some of the results?
Well, I think East-West kind of shaped up our Class B teams about where we thought they were. Lisbon came out on top there. South Border pushed them pretty hard. Carrington came in third, and I thought actually had a pretty good tournament in the sense that they had some of their big guns lose in the semis and fought back and took third. So they were able to score some points a different way than just making the finals like we've seen in some of the smaller tournaments throughout the year. So I was pretty impressed with that. New Salem came in fourth. They've got some really good athletes in there that are gonna score some points at the state tournament. Velva, I think that they're a team that, as the fields get bigger, they're gonna kind of rise a little bit too, because they're gonna have some guys that score a lot of points. I thought overall we kind of are seeing it shape up about the way we thought it was. I think Lisbon's still a favorite. I am not probably ready to crown him yet. I think South Border is really poised to make a jump. I think I believe Lisbon is the favorite, but I think that it's going to be a battle in the top two. I
totally agree. I tell you what, I'll be rooting for Region 1. That's both teams.
Yeah.
But when you look at the final results and stuff like that, I was impressed at how well that Lisbon was scoring in the wrestlebacks, and so was a lot of these teams. When you start thinking of, having that tough competition coming down to the end, we have some crucial weeks here. You got to stay injury free. Sicknesses. Maybe we've been blessed with this nice weather, so people aren't all, frozen and getting sick.
Right. Yeah, I that's a big thing. I think that the teams that can make sure they get through these regional duels healthy, and keep all the silly stuff. This is the time of year the coaches always have to sit down with the whole lineup and talk about the silly stuff that can happen this time of year and being taking care of their any skin issues that could come up and make sure that everybody's doing everything they can so they're not catching colds and they're not coming down with any other ailments that could either keep them out or possibly just take their performance down a notch.
Definitely. Now I was looking at some of the results and I was going through the undefeated wrestlers. I should probably put a list together. I know there's Clay Gerhart from New Salem that's still undefeated. I know that Bowden Greenlee from Lisbon is still undefeated. McCleary from Napoleon. I'm trying to think. Probably Delax Burlington. I'm trying to think who else is still undefeated.
Well,
that Jokum is still undefeated from Mark Jokum from South Border.
Okay.
He hasn't lost yet. Jordan Sowers hasn't lost yet. So we have a lot of undefeated wrestlers. But what's interesting is some of our undefeated wrestlers only have 20 in the mid-20s or less matches.
Right.
So there must have been some earlier injuries. I know that before the finals at 182 that Logan Sell only had 6 matches. He was undefeated going into the finals, but he had lost.
Yeah.
Spooner.
Coy Spooner, Delax. He's 35-0. That's probably the most matches of one of those guys. Peyton Grunfelder, no, he's 29-4. Of course, at 170, Garrett Jangula, 21-0.
South Dakota does this dynamite dozen and does these different things. That's something that if somebody wants to take on, I'd love to see it because I actually debated about it for a little while about putting a senior book together again maybe I'll have to really sit down and think about that in the near future, because it's a great memorabilia thing for the state wrestling tournament. It wouldn't take much for me to send out some senior questionnaires, get a picture, and put a small book together for the state tournament. It'd be a nice thing to do, I'm thinking.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Put that on my list again of things to do. I did I'd say about 4 or 5 of them early on when I did the book, but that's before I had a family and had more time on my hands.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Every one of these good ideas takes time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm going to talk a little bit. I don't know if anybody's got any questions at any time. I know that it's always good to see a few people come on. I saw that Kelly Haas had put down this before when I was talking. Jangle and Spooner, definitely top class in the state there. Chris Hermes earlier, thanks for coming on. His dad was one of the originals Hall of Famers, Williston head coach. Chris Hermes, state champion himself. He was officially the first father-son, I don't know if he's still listening, father-son in North Dakota, one of the first ones, Class A-wise, to win it. So he had a heck of a match his senior year to beat, in fact, Kringley from Bismarck High, the one who was the state champion wrestler, his dad, in the finals. So the history continues. It's always good to see people coming on. Feel free to, make more comments. I love to see them as we get busier and busier. I'm hoping that we get comments throughout, like there, Kelly Haas comes on and
Kelly's always got a lot to say. We'd like to get Kelly on here
behind the scenes. I'd love to have him on because I know he's a good, how can you say, ambassador of the sport. Definitely. So keep them coming. I did post. If you go up to the messages, if somebody wants to hop on, I do have a message on there, both on Facebook. Feel free to come on. I'm going to talk a little bit about Aberdeen. I was down in Aberdeen for the Lee Wolf tournament. Run very well. I was impressed. They do a good job keeping the mats rolling. They have 4 mats going. Usually they have about 16 teams, but they had a couple of teams that come down with some sickness, and so there was only, I think, one bracket that was full up to the 16, and that happened to be at the 145-pound weight class. Yep. And Chris Hermes is right. The late Kelly Kringley. That's very, very true. Yep, that's one that we will remember very much so. Headlock machine, I used to call him. He was a headlock guy. If you stayed out of the headlock, John Corwin, one of my teammates, knew that was ahead many a times by 8 to 10 points and got thrown a headlock late in the match. But going to that Aberdeen tournament again, like I said, they ran on 4 mats. They do a great job down there. They keep them rolling. I mentioned that, but got to see some of the premier wrestlers in South Dakota. Got to see Nash Hutmacher. He has got 63 pins in a row after the finals. He did not have a match last more than 40-some seconds. He pinned all 4 of his guys. Like 9 seconds was his quickest pin. He's got one of these hard doubles where heavyweights are a little top heavy, but he definitely knee tap running doubles to their backs, power halves. He cradled one of the kids and pinned him. He's a machine, fun to watch. Kellen March, another great wrestler, South Dakota. He was very impressive at 138. Kind of interesting. He had the pin streak. He was the first one to break. This was Randy Lewis used to have a pin streak of about 50, 55 matches, and Kellen was the first one to break it. But then right about Christmas time, it got stopped.
Yeah.
And then he actually I was impressed. Jamestown had a young wrestler, a freshman, that only lost 6-0 in the semis to him. So
I saw that. That's a heck of that's Colton Muse, right?
Yep, Colton Muse. Yep.
Yeah, that's that was a heck of a result, really.
And then after that, Colton had 2 heartbreaking losses in the wrestlebacks, overtime where he should have won. Referees, you might say a little subject in South Dakota to the North Dakota boys, but so he lost a couple tough matches, but he wrestled really well. Young freshman wrestling very good. I thought Colton Muse was one of my, how could you say, upcoming stars that I watched in that tournament.
Great.
Another Self-Rank out of Aberdeen. He is a stud, undefeated all of last year, undefeated all of this year. I'm thinking, he's got probably 60, 70 wins in a row also. And he wrestled very well. I was impressed with Aiden Braun. There's his Northern. Yep, who's there.
Self-Rank is coming to Northern next year.
Wait, I was the first one who suggested the green screen, but I don't have mine yet. I will have a bunch of them, but we'll match those up. That's awesome. But very impressed with Aiden Braun. Aiden Braun got in on self-rank on a high crotch, and self-ranks is almost impossible to score on. And he was in there and wrestled a very valiant match in the finals. I was very impressed on how hard he went. He's also just a freshman. So Jamestown has got a lot to look forward to. These guys, they're going to make I don't see how they're not going to make the 4th seed in the West and get to represent in 20 years, the first time at the state dual tournament. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, good.
Thumbs up for Jamestown and all the hard work that they put in there. Also, let me think who else wrestled really good. In fact, South Dakota had they had 2 or 3 matches in the finals that they were returning state champions in both Class A and Class B that faced each other, which doesn't happen very often. And the thing I like about this tournament too, they get a write-up after their semis, and they kind of like this, really highlight the wrestlers, and the announcers announce, what their favorite sport is and their food, and they're known for being a ping pong champion or whatever. They say one said that he was the fishing champion of South Dakota, which is just a joke. And another one, they say all these kind of fun things in there. One said that they were a soccer champion. Now, I don't know anything about soccer, but they said they were a Blaine soccer champion. And actually, somebody then came up to me after I asked, and there's a huge soccer tournament in Blaine.
Really big tournament in Blaine. Yep.
World known, and they won that. So I thought that's pretty good. And then others play baseball. And one said they were Little League World Series type people going back. That's probably the Rapid Cities, and so it's interesting to hear just the whole stats of all the wrestling. They also have it's televised also, some of the stuff they do, and they were asked a lot of questions how we're handling our state tournament, because they're having a dual tournament for the first time in about, 10, 15 years. I'd have to know the exact number. If somebody knows the exact number, feel free to post it over here so I can remember the last time they had a dual tournament. And their schedule is quite different than ours. They're running it 3 days, but they're running 2 rounds of duels on Friday or Thursday and 2 rounds of wrestling and 1 wrestle back. But they'll have their semis, I think, at about noon on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're running it really early on that Friday. You better show up about noon or earlier to see those, because I love our Friday night semis.
I do too. Yep. To me, it's the best round of the tournament.
And they basically said, "How do you guys run that?" And I said, "We turn down the lights for the finals. We have smoke machines, and the lights are going. All of the people bring out their glow sticks and have them around their necks, and I get goosebumps thinking about it. It's pretty awesome."
Yep. It's a good one.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking through those results from Watertown, I see at 132 pounds, Ty Altoff from Watertown was a champion there, and he's also a Northern State commit for next year. So that's kind of nice to see.
That was one heck of a final match. I tell you what, Altoff was down, and those guys were leg passing and to do a few different things, and that Altoff caught the other kid. They're both returning state champions. That was the one of the matches where you had 2 state champions facing each other. And Altoff is strong. I mean, he caught him, and when he put him on his back, that was a great match. In fact, that was probably my favorite match in the finals. Right there.
I saw at 120 had an all Bismarck Century final.
Well, here's what's interesting. Century, they have 2 guys. Actually, they've had 2 20-pounders all year, but they actually have 3. Their 26-pounder decided just about a couple weeks ago that he's been weighing 23 or so, and once you get those 2 pounds, and he decided to wrestle off just to check out what he could do. He's a senior, and it's a tough thing. I don't know as a coach how you'd handle it. Yeah. This late in the season, and he wants to wrestle off a kid that's ranked, probably could be one of the top 2 in the state. Wrestle off your own teammate for the varsity spot. Sure. Imagine you're ranked 2nd in the state, and you're getting wrestled off this close to regions and state by a kid who normally has the varsity spot at 126, Johnsrud.
Yep.
And so it was almost like a second wrestle off. And it was a battle. Johnsrud got the lead to start in that match, but Dakota, he's tough on top. He's hard to score on, and he got him and turned him. And then it is going to be a battle. I question it a little bit just because I'm a team orientated guy, and it could rip apart a team in somewhat when you already got a spot situated and you
Right.
take another young kid's spot if you did. And he doesn't. The other one is not big enough to be a 26-pounder, so they have their third 20-pounder who's been wrestling back up at 20 all year, Jake Ersland, and wrestled them up at 26.
Okay.
And then placing fifth, I think, at 126, if I remember right. And so, it's not like Century's really looking for the state championship in the individual. So they kind of do a little bit of different, method of making sure the seniors get what they want. And I'm not sure about that yet, but I guess I'm not the coach either. So I don't get to make those decisions, which would be hard, which would be very hard to do. I give them credit for, at least, giving somebody an opportunity that's a senior to do it. And wrestling's about wrestle-offs. But we're just lucky in the state of North Dakota that you can have two people at a spot.
Yeah, in Class A, we are. We're very lucky.
At least in Class A, yeah, you're right.
I saw this happen a few years ago where this week, the last week of the season, we had a wrestle off and had a returning state champ lose a wrestle off match and and that was a tough one. Yep. So it happened.
Iron's supposed to sharpen iron, but
yeah, yep. It is.
Bring some tears too,
Well, you know how the part of the problem with wrestle-offs, and I'm all for wrestle-offs. I grew up in the sport, and that's the way it was always done. But when you wrestle the same guy in the room every day, it's not always the best guy that comes out on top in a wrestle-off. When it comes to the rest of the state,
he just knows you so well, correct?
Right? And I can tell you that as a guy that, as a junior, me and my wrestling partner and best friend wrestled off every week. And one of us would go up the next one. One was to wrestle the 38 it was, and the next one would wrestle 45. And that's what we did every week. We were always wrestling off for that 38 spot. And then until the very last week, when one of us won it twice in a row. But yeah, it was, it was very interesting because, and I will say, I was on the last wrestle-offs, but I was probably not the better of the two wrestlers, honestly. But I figured out how to win that match, because we practiced together every single day, and everything we did was together. So, and that's just an example with for me, but we see that quite a bit in the room.
Exact same story. My junior year, a guy named Carl Limke, who was an All-American for University of Mary, wrestled me off every week for my 145-pound position. Every week. And tough wrestler. He didn't get to be on the varsity till his senior year. Imagine that, sticking out and not wrestling any varsity at all. That's how difficult it would be. And he stuck it out, and he did extra wrestling every year, was always with Terry and Troy Steiner trying to do the extra. And that takes a lot of dedication and be mentally tough. And then, being a state finalist and almost won his senior year. So imagine not placing at all, not being on varsity until your senior year and have a chance to be a state champion. Very difficult thing to do. Carl Limke, good friend of mine who, I tell you what, week of regions, the coaches told me we were done the week before. Then the week of regions, all of a sudden on the Tuesday of regions, the coach says, hey, you've ever wrestle off. And I was not prepared mentally whatsoever. And I thought I was done with the wrestle-offs. I was ranked second in the state. The only guy I had lost to was Steve McCormick. He ended up being Mr. Wrestler that year from St. Mary's.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I won a 1-0 match against Carl. And it was like, oh my, if I would have lost, I don't know what I'd have done. I really don't. And, those tight things, I think back and I'm going, oh man, I'm so happy I didn't lose. And so I don't know if I'd have had the dedication Carl did to do all the extra work. I wouldn't have quit because I'm a lifer. I always have been for wrestling. But the one thing you look back at and go, man, how things could change in somebody's life. You never know.
And so, when it comes down to it, it's always going to be the coach's choice, I think, in most rooms that at the end of the day, who's going to have that spot. But, it's interesting. I guess I'll be kind of that puts a little extra on that weight class for me to watch here. The last few weeks of the season.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we'll see what they do. I'm not sure exactly if there's going to be any switches still on the team. I am I'm in the room enough to know what's going on, but I never know. I think that leaves them a spot to move things in the dual wise. I think Johnsrud really wants to give an opportunity to wrestle one of the Tanafus.
Oh.
I think he wants to see where he's at that spot, see how he do against Wilford, who hasn't lost this year. I don't know. That's
right.
That's
not the one I'd want to go find, I think.
Yeah, I know, but you got Barnhart in his weight class too, who's lost.
Right. Yeah, you're jumping out of the fire into the flames. But
so it's tough either way.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to see. That gives, if you really think strategy wise, and I don't want to give a lot of hints out there, but in my own mind, I'm thinking that might give an opportunity. Bismarck, one of their weaker weight classes is 126. And so would you put a Johnsrud in there just to see how he does against Tanafu? He's a senior. It's the last home duel of the year, even though we already had Parasite against Bismarck High. It's Century on Thursday. I mentioned this last week, and I made the mistake that so it's this week, people. But that would give Dakota a chance to go up to 26, where Bismarck has another freshman wrestler, Tate,
right.
And gives Century a chance to win a couple of matches.
Right,
Bismarck would be ranked 1 at 7 weight classes. That doesn't happen. They've got a great team.
Yeah.
And so
they're pretty.
I'm looking for Century to squeeze out a few wins, but not looking for if I had to predict a dual score, I wouldn't be very nice to Century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay,
I was kind of hoping we'd see Clay Redens back this week. We didn't. He
should be back. He's been wrestling hard in the room. He almost wrestled this weekend down in Aberdeen. They thought about it on Friday, and then just decided, guess what? There's too much bigger picture, down the road. And at 138, there was that Kellen March.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to see
from Canton, and I would have liked to see it but he wasn't probably. I think if Clay was at 100%, that would be one heck of a match. But if he's at 80 or 90%, and I'm going, I wouldn't press it. And he is just a junior, so he's got another year also. But he's also, when you get him going 100%, Clay's hard to beat.
Absolutely. Yep.
And he's fun. He's fun to watch. Yep. And
I agree.
I get a kick out of him and his dad. I got lots of stories. His dad is probably one of the funniest people on the Century team. So you have an opportunity to visit with him sometime.
Yeah.
It's all jokes and funny stuff. So, I do enjoy being around him too.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Did you have a chance to look at some of the Livermore results?
I did. Probably the first thing that stood out to me is Tanner Erlob was back at 145 pounds.
Okay.
So that's a returning state finalist with his first I think his first event of the year. I think he's, and so he won the 145 pound weight class. So that's going to make Pembina County North a little bit tougher. But it was just good to see Tanner, and I think that's been the plan all year long. He's been banged up, and I think it was, kind of on that mythic pitch count, where he's been around, he's been in the room.
I did see that because he said just 5 matches now. Yep.
Did see that. Yep. So that was good to see. But other than that, Badger, Greenbush, Middle River took first. They won the tournament. Devil's Lake was second with a pretty good showing. And I guess I'll go back just a little bit. Thursday night, Devil's Lake, West Fargo, Carrington had a triangular. And Devil's Lake went 2-0. Carrington went 1-1, and West Fargo went 0-2. So that's and I just kind of go back to a little bit of the history of that triangular. When that triangular first started, the first year they had it was in Devil's Lake. And I don't know if Devil's Lake won a match in the 2 duels. They may have won 1 match in 2 duels. Okay. So that kind of tells you how far they've come. It's awesome to see. I'm really, really happy to see in that program.
Were you there for the whole duel for JV and everything, or?
Yes.
What did some of the JV numbers? How were they?
I think there was 7 or 8 JV matches. Okay. I don't, West Fargo took off immediately. I don't know. They may have had some JV matches before the first duel. I wasn't there yet then. But yeah, there was, 7 or 8 JV matches in between the West Fargo Carrington duel and the Carrington Devil's Lake duel. So,
but it shows how much hard work it takes West Fargo, it was very gracious of them to keep Devil's Lake going because, they're kind of in that probationary period for a little bit, and they needed matches at home and some support. And I think Devil's Lake's done a great job.
Yeah, no, that was the deal, right? I mean, we both, West Fargo and Carrington, both always had Devil's Lake on the dual schedule, and this became a way to bring a couple matches that night, and then the next year we all went to West Fargo, and then the next year we all went to Carrington, and it's kind of rotated around that way, and this has been built from the ground up, right? This has been built from the youth program. I know they had their youth tournament on this Sunday. I did not hear what the numbers were, but it's generally a pretty busy tournament. So it's really, I'm just happy to see, how far they've come. So, Pembina County North took third. Grand Forks Central was there. West Fargo Cheyenne, that kind of rounded out the field. So yeah, they had a pretty good tournament, I think.
Yeah, Sean Horgan, they've put a pretty good team together. Them and Cavalier together with Pembina and Erlob, originally the Cavalier, you kind of put those two together, and I always think it's going to be scary, but I haven't seen them, come out on top yet. But I think it's a numbers game more and more, and that's why they had to combine with one another.
Right. Yep.
They do some talent, but they don't travel as much as they used to.
They don't. They I don't know. I guess from the time I've been around, their schedules kind of stayed the same. They're a long ways up there, and probably about. I mean, they go to Central Cass. They may go to Valley City. I don't remember for sure, and they come to Carrington.
So where's
go to Rugby?
Where's that region to? The dual and where those are at? The dual and the individual.
The dual is in Carrington this weekend.
Okay.
I can't remember I think the individual might be could be in Castleton.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know the duels are in Carrington this weekend.
Okay.
So yeah, that kind of is what I saw out of that tournament. It's, one thing I noticed in that tournament that I we should probably talk about is Northwood had a team. They're a team in the region, and I, it's not a program that's been around. So
I missed that. I did. That's good.
Yeah. So they had. I guess I'll look right here. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wrestlers. Two of them at 170. So that's something to build on. So that actually gives us 9 teams in our region. So I think Northwood, if I remember right, looking at the bracket, I think Northwood will wrestle Mayville in the very first round, kind of a pigtail match in the dual tournament, and then the winner of that will get Pembina County North. So Pembina County North will be the 1 seed, Carrington the 2, Central Cass, I suppose, the 3. But yeah, that's how it ends up. I can't remember who's the 4, I guess, off the top of my head, but maybe I don't think it's Hillsborough. I don't remember who it is, but so that's what we're going to see out of this region on Saturday. I guess we'll be following all those regional tournaments this weekend.
Yeah, we'll go through the end where everybody's at this weekend and stuff like that. Okay, now, not to get away from high school too much, I know there's a lot of big things going on, but we need to talk a little college wrestling. I've been dying. There was a great duel, if you guys didn't catch it, Iowa and Penn State. Carver Arena must have been just hopping. They were sold out. They said that there was a waiting line like hours and hours before the duel was even starting. I would have loved to have been a fly in the wall there.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'll give you a little bit of my insight. So I went to Minot for a duel against Northern and Minot State. We can talk about that duel later. But as I got home probably midnight, and I had been able to keep from seeing anything, the results of that duel, and I turned it on and watched that duel at midnight, and I could not even go to sleep afterwards. This was I watched.
Well, there's some big matches.
I watched a lot of wrestling, and this was the most exciting duel I've ever watched in my life. I mean, if Oh, that's great to see, Kelly. Kelly says Northwood had a fair amount of kids at the Devil's Lake tournament Saturday. That is awesome. I wonder if Kelly, if you could give me a little update, who's running the program over there, who's coaching, who's got the kids program going. I'd be interested to know that. But anyway, go back to that Iowa Penn State duel. There was a lot of a lot of people looking out for that duel coming on. It's number one team versus number two. Penn, of course, Iowa's number one. They had a number of top 5 ranked guys in the country. You've got a lot of number of highly ranked matchups, and it did not disappoint. I mean, it was fire right from you knew that at 125 pounds that Spencer Lee was gonna come out and get. He's gonna get 5. He doesn't many people, but he techs almost everybody in the first period, which is crazy. This one actually made it into the second period, but he's
a fireball to start off any duel.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good way to start your duels, and at 133 pounds, you had the number 2 ranked guy in the country, Austin DeSanto, wrestling number 4 ranked Roman Bravo, or number 3 ranked, maybe he's 3 ranked Roman Bravo Young, and
is he injured? Is he? Tell me what's up with that.
So I don't. Did you? So here's what happened.
Okay.
He's not injured going into
enough to forfeit. Didn't look like enough to forfeit the match.
He was not injured going into the match. I can promise you that. So
okay.
And I would be it's really interesting and I would probably lend a little bit to the way that Tom Brands described it. Was he had this feeling he didn't think that that DeSanto's maybe ever been injured in his life, and all of a sudden you feel a tweak in your knee, and it's a fear thing, right? Oh my God, what happened? And so he hollered out, and the ref stopped it the first time, and that was going to be a takedown going to his back. I mean, he had a cradle locked up, and he was going to his back, but it ended up stopped it. Nothing happened, no points. He kind of takes some injury time, and they get it figured out. RBY takes him down, gets an escape, takes him down again, and he goes back, gets an inside cradle again, and he was going to his back for sure. Mm-hmm. And DeSanto yelled out again, and the ref stopped it, and DeSanto said, "I can't go on," and they called it. So
see, I thought they were just kind of, how could you say, like saying, guess what, you were being such a wuss that we're gonna just take you out of here. I didn't see that he was in a position to be hurt. That was the whole thing about it.
What happened is this the way it's pretty interesting because once RBY got to the corner, he grabbed DeSanto's foot, and he didn't pick it up and then pull his leg towards him, because when you do that, the knee has nowhere to go but to give out, right?
Right.
He grabbed his foot, just like we teach every kid from, I don't know, 3rd grade on. You grab the foot and you slide it along the mat, and then slide it along the corner, and then the knee pops up because it has a place to go. Well, now the knee's next to the head, and you cradle it and go. I mean, that's how we're all taught, and that's how we've taught, cradles.
Right.
I don't know, forever, since we learned that that's the way the joints work.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. He probably has. He didn't wrestle Sunday. He was supposed to have an MRI today. And when I watched the Terry Brand or the Tom Brands press conference, he looked disappointed, right? I mean, this is a tough guy. I mean, Brands is a tough guy, right? And that's and I can give you an example. So to me, I didn't like to see it. And if you want to take an example of how in our sport we end up seeing stuff happen most of the time, watch Friday's match between Purdue and Minnesota. 125-pound match. Patrick McKee wrestling. He's ahead. He hurt his knee. I mean, it was hurt. There's no two bones about it. He's ahead, I don't know, 5-1 or something. And he ends up going back. They tape it up. He finishes. He's obviously in a lot of pain. but he finished the match and it ended up getting tech fault. Saves the 1 point team and probably doesn't make a whole lot of. I mean, he's hurt. I don't know how bad it is, but there was no doubt that he was hurt. And and you could watch that one, or you could go back and watch yesterday's duel, which we'll talk about later. But between Isaiah White and the 165 pounder from Ohio State, Isaiah White hurt his ankle. Ends up, I mean, they tape it up over his shoe, over his sock. He's definitely obviously in pain. And his coach, coaches said, hey, this is the duel's tied 14-14. It's the last match. Duel's on the line, Isaiah, you got to tough this out. And he, not only did he tough it out, he gets a cradle and pin in the last 5 seconds to win the duel. So those pains in the ankle go away pretty fast at that point.
When you win, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the DeSanto match.
That should put Roman in the 2 spot behind Gross then, wouldn't it?
So here's the situation.
Okay.
In the seeding, right? If we're seeding this.
Okay, because this is all Big Ten.
Right. So, yeah, it'll probably put him in the 2 spot at the, for seeds. But when the rankers come out, all the rankers say, hey, we don't count injury defaults. I don't care how it happens.
Okay.
And in, that's kind of how they, so people get things mixed up a little bit, right? So rankings are one thing, but rankings are predictions. They're based on past results. And let's just say that was the same situation. And we had it happen a few years ago. Jason Nolf hurt his knee in a match.
Yep.
He had to medical injury default, and you wouldn't say, oh God, now he's not the number 1 guy in the country anymore, because he's that it's kind of hard to use that because you don't know what's going to happen if the match goes on or whatever. We knew what was going to happen in that DeSanto match. He was going to his back. It was going to be at the least 9-1, probably going to get pinned. So I have a hard time with the optics of it, but the rankings are probably not going to change. But when they go to seed that national or that Big Ten tournament, they got to separate those two. Now we will see an RBY Gross match in a couple weeks here.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be, I don't know how it's all going to shake out. I guess we'll see how that one goes. And I don't know if anybody wrestles Sebastian Rivera again. I don't know if RBY or
Northwestern kid. Yeah.
See, I think DeSanto and I think the Northwestern and Iowa duel. I got the schedule right here, I bet. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll find out. But they, if they did, I would think there's probably a pretty good chance that they don't wrestle them.
The Big Ten is loaded at that weight. When I last looked, I know Illinois had a tough wrestler in there. Rutgers, the Big Ten is just completely Nebraska. They do
not wrestle. The Iowa does not wrestle Northwestern. So you won't see a DeSanto. Okay. So I mean, your top 4 there are going to be Gross, RBY, DeSanto, and Sebastian Rivera in some order. Now, I think.
What is the most? Would you know how many guys could make it? What kind of are they going to allow the Big Ten to get into the tournament in, let's say, a weight class like that? I know they
probably 8. Probably 8.
Okay, I was wondering if they'd go 7, 8 deep.
Yeah, probably 8. They're pretty deep at that weight class. The Big Ten is. It might be 7. It's gonna. It'll be hard to. It'd be 7 or 8.
See, now years ago. Now, like I said, I'm getting back into the college stuff, and I always wondered how they chose. I know they knew deep into it, but some classes I remember going back and they'd say, okay, this conference gets 2 guys.
Right.
This conference gets 8 at the weight class, and you're always going, man, we got 3. We got this extra guy in, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And
well,
how their criteria works for that.
What they do is they have an RPI number, which is a ranking based on. Basically, it's a ranking based on your comment off your opponents. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a number value that's brought to that. So they'll kind of take the top I guess they bring 33 people in the national tournament, and they have a certain number, and it might be around 24 or whatever it is, and they say, okay, well, 8 of the Big Ten would fit in that. So these 8 qualify. The top 8 will qualify, and it's actually attached to a person. So let's just say 133 pounds in the Big 12. So Cameron Sikora he's gonna qualify a spot, right? Now, say they have four qualifiers out of the Big 12. Cameron Sikora would be one, and then say 3 other guys, whatever it is. If one of those guys doesn't qualify, someone steals one of their spots, let's say, then Cameron would probably still say it was him. He would still qualify if he was 5th based on his body of work throughout the season. With an at-large bid.
Okay, I know that Bridges from Wyoming is pretty good in there.
Yeah, Montour Bridges is very good. Yep. They got a good. I mean, there's a handful of them. The Iowa State guy, Todd Smalls, is really good.
Okay.
The Oklahoma State's down a little bit.
What conferences would you say are the ones that are going to get 1 or 2 guys in versus the other ones that get 8?
Well,
does the MAC get anybody in nowadays?
The MAC will be short. But although I think the MAC and there's 2 conferences just went together, so they'll kind of add up some. The MAC and the
Pac-12, no.
Pac-12 will be a little short.
Okay.
They will be.
I got to even think of all the conferences. I don't even know them all anymore.
No, the Pac-12 will be a conference. The Big 12 has been a little short the last few years, but they're a little stronger this year, I think. There was weights last year. I think 157 last year. Maybe at the Big 12 had 1 qualifier.
Okay.
Are
there any independent?
174 only had, or 65.
Are there any independent conferences anymore?
Yeah, there's there's the EWIAs, which is basically the Ivy League.
Okay.
But they'll have they have pretty good. That's one of the top conferences now because you got Cornell, Lehigh,
phenomenal, yeah.
Syracuse, Princeton, tough. They've been good. Probably the conference that's made the biggest jumps is maybe the ACC, with NC State, North Carolina. Duke has been really good.
Well, the ACC is the basketball anyway. No.
Well, it is, but I'm telling you,
football.
Those guys, at North Carolina State, North Carolina, University of Virginia, Virginia Tech. That's Pitt is in that conference.
Okay.
So those are, and you got good young coaches doing a good job at a lot of those schools. So, that may be the second best conference in the country right now.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder if I looked here. It's always hard when you look at rankings, like team rankings, because they. But if I had, I bet I have it here. Team rankings.
Probably got it somewhere.
Let's see. Why do I not have team rankings? But it's not very good radio. So yeah, there's a. Yeah, it'll be interesting how that comes out. But going back to that other duel, 141, Nick Lee, was really dominant. Gets a pinfall. So at the end of so Spencer Lee gets a tech, so it's 5-0.
It flips back.
RBY gets a injury default, so it's 6-5. And then in that exchange, when DeSanto got hurt, the Iowa coaches got a team point taken away. So now it's
okay. I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah. So now it's 6-4, which is kind of exciting. And then after that, Nick Lee comes out, and Nick Lee gets a tech fall. So then it's all of a sudden now it's 11-4.
Well, there are some other college people on there. There we go. Penberthy, EWL joined the MAC.
That's what it was. Yep, EWL. Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I knew there was a combination last year, and I couldn't remember what it was, but that's exactly right.
Then after that match, what's interesting is you see the flow. It has to be just a roller coaster because you're going one team's ahead, other teams ahead, and there's more upsets coming up in this duel. So I can see why you didn't go to sleep.
Man. Well, Pat Lugo at 149 wins over Jared Verclaren 6-1. Penn State's kind of weak.
Tell me about that match a little bit. I expected actually a bigger win.
Well, Lugo doesn't score a lot more than 6 points, so I kind of figured that'd be like a 5-2 type deal. So to me, 6-1 was a dominating performance by Lugo, and it was. But Verclaren doesn't give up a lot of points. He loses most of his matches. I mean, he's what's his record? He's I don't know for sure, but he's a good wrestler. Listen to me. He's a Division I wrestler that's a world medalist. He's a good wrestler, but on that lineup, he's a 49-57 his weak spot. Lugo, got a couple takedowns. I think he probably had 3 takedowns and one. Oh, actually, I think it was 2 takedowns and a stall call and an escape. So, and Caleb Young beat Bo Pfeiffer 6-1. After that, it's 10-11. Penn State still in the lead. Then one of the bigger matches we're going to see of the year. Vincenzo Joseph is number 1 ranked in the country, and Alex Marinelli is ranked number 2. But that being said, of course, Vincenzo is a 2-time national champion, 1-time runner-up, and has not beaten Alex Marinelli. He's 0-2 against him.
Okay.
In the last couple of years, Marinelli is undefeated in his history at Carver Hawkeye. So this is one of those moments that you don't know what's going to happen. If you've watched their matches in the past, Marinelli, Vincenzo's real big in that over under tie, and he hits a lot of inside trips and puts a lot of people on their back, and that got him in trouble twice with Marinelli in the past. One time he was winning the match and ends up getting thrown to his back from his own move. Another time, it's really hard to tell whose move it was, but he ended up on his back. If he went for the inside trip after he was already going to his back, or if he went for his
scramble. Yes.
Yeah. And in this match, Marinelli went out early and kept trying to force those inside ties, those over under ties, and it bit him. Finally, in the third period, and it was really good match up to that point. But Joseph ends up with a 6-point throw. Throws him to his back, and Helzebler and ends up winning the match, 11-6. So. Yeah, it was.
That gets even crazier.
That gets even crazier. Yeah. So you got number 1 versus number 2, but I might be number 1 versus. I think in some rankings, I think Kemmerer was he was 2 or 3. Kemmerer's up 2 weight classes from the last time we've seen him. 2 years ago. He's been undefeated so far this year.
And Mark Hall's just so tough to beat. But he had nothing. He had nothing for Kimmer. He just got taken.
He got taken down 3 times, and there's probably seasons he didn't get taken down 3 times. He's so hard to take down, and that whole match could have been way different. Mark Hall throws him to his back in the first period. And they kind of roll through. He'll obviously just a game of inches, right? He holds him there, and all of a sudden it's a 6-0 match, and no one ever comes back from that. Against Hall,
right?
So, but Kemmerer he never stopped coming. After he got a takedown, he got 1 takedown in a scramble, and then he kept shooting, and it was.
I think it was a wake up call for Mark Hall.
I think so too. That one actually kind of hurt me. I'm a Mark Hall fan, and it wasn't. I was watching the duel, not really caring who wins the duel, to be honest with you. Just a fan of the duel. There was a couple matches that I kind of wanted to see go one way or another. That was one of them. And
so the old discount double check that Mark Hall does, with the belt. And
yep. That's right. So I'm gonna probably go out on a limb and say I think Mark Hall wins the next 2 matches of that series at the Big Tens in the national tournament. But that just goes to show you that nobody at any weight class is unbeatable in this game. So, so then that's the first time that Iowa took the lead after 125 pounds. It was 14-13. No, it was still no. They were still behind. It was 13-14. Then Aaron Brooks. You had a kind of a story of 2 phenoms, right? You got a true freshman in Aaron Brooks against true freshman Abe Assad that they pulled out a red shirt this year. I thought that would be a pretty exciting match, and it turned out to be. Aaron Brooks won 7-3. So it looked,
daunting.
Yeah, but I still thought that even at that point, I thought, boy, Iowa's in pretty good shape now because I think they're favored at heavyweight, and I thought that 97 was a toss-up, but the way that Shakir Rashid looks, he just does not look right yet, whether he will or not, and it makes me even wonder if Penn State doesn't pull a pretty good kid out of redshirt. They've got a pretty good guy redshirting that I wouldn't be shocked if they pulled him out, here for the last couple weeks of the season.
Much this year. He's only got a couple of matches in.
Right. Yep. He last year in March he had knee surgery. The week after the national tournament. So he's pretty big knee surgery. He didn't wrestle at all until after the first of the year. So he started off. I think he's already got one. I think he's in it.
Okay.
But they give him away. I mean, he could get another one, but I think he wants to go be an actor. He'll be all right. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I keep thinking that, but all the great stuff we've seen. So Shakir Rashid was an All-American at 197 pounds 2 years ago. And then last year, and all the great stuff that we saw of him that year, we're not seeing yet. Right. He was so tough on top. He was good on his feet. He's quicker than most guys at that weight. And we're not seeing any of that. I mean, we're seeing just kind of a shell of what he was. So I'm hoping, just for the sake of the weight class, that he'll get a little bump and get tougher in there, or maybe we'll see a red shirt pulled.
Kellen Moore is pretty much the dominant in that weight class anyway, but it would be nice to have another person, Penn State, to show some of that. Could make a difference in the national championship. They get somebody there that could put some points on the board.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's what it comes down to, right? They look and they go, well, if Rashid place, could he get 7th? And if they pull a red shirt, does that guy get better than, does he get 7th or 6th or,
right.
So those would be the numbers that Coach Sanderson's will have to come up with. So, and then at heavyweight, big Tony Cassiope, redshirt freshman.
Everybody says he's looking better and better, but he won't touch Gable.
That's how I feel. Yeah. No, I don't think he can. I think he
Cassiope dominant that match.
Yeah, and I actually thought that might be closer than it was. And once again, we had an early exchange that goes the other way, and it could have changed the way that went. But Cassiope was able to finish that scramble, and then he did keep. He kind of kept on the attack, and Seth Nevels is a really good heavyweight. This is a California 4-time state champion in a one-class system out there that lost, I think, one match in all of high school.
Well, they were both undefeated going into the duel. So
yeah. Well, and that being said, Nevels really didn't wrestle except for open tournaments, until after the first of the year, because they had Kassar, returning national champion in there, and then he hurt his shoulder at the senior nationals. So,
do you listen to a lot of the commentary when they're going through the duel? I thought those guys do an excellent job.
Yeah, they did a really good job.
Very excitable. If you guys have a chance to catch some of the stuff that they do, it's good.
That duel was actually on the Big Ten Network, so it's pretty easy to catch. I don't know, I record all that, so it's a little easier, that way, because but yeah, they did a good job. They're kind of it's two guys from Iowa. I mean, they're both really good, knowledgeable guys, national championship wrestlers and coaches, but they probably are a little bit Iowa homers like you, but that's okay.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a really exciting duel. I mean, every match. I mean, the stuff, with the exception of the Spencer Lee match, which you knew wasn't going to be. It was going to be what it was. I mean, he doesn't pin a lot of people. He gets a lot of tech falls, and that's what he did. And that was there wasn't much suspense there. But after that, every single match, even at heavyweight where Cassiope did dominate that match, but going in the duels in peril, right? I mean, whoever wins that match wins the duel. So it's pretty exciting going into it.
And I think the environment makes a difference. If that's wrestled at Penn State, does it change? I think it could,
Right. Well, there's a thing they call getting carvered, right? I mean, there's these guys that go in there, and I don't, Mark Hall lost his very first Division I match in Carver Hawkeye Arena. They pulled his red shirt, came out and lost, and later on he went on to win a national title that year. But I don't think that was the case this time. I think he was maybe a little amped up and tried to go pretty big early and ended up, getting it a little bit in a hole. But that Kemmerer wrestled great. I mean, he really, and he's looking really strong. That was of course, that's
going up there, but
what's that?
I wasn't sure if he'd be big enough.
Well, that's one of those things you wonder when, and I think at 57 2 years ago, I think he was cutting an awful lot of weight. But yeah, he looked good. It's pretty interesting to see. That Iowa lineup is full of Pennsylvania guys. They got a Pennsylvania guy at 25, 33. There's usually, they did not have their starter in at 41, but he's a Pennsylvania guy. 49, he's from Florida. 57's from Pennsylvania. Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, by the way.
Okay. Groundhog.
Yeah, 57. That's 57 there. 65. Is
that their school mascot, the groundhog, too?
What's that?
Is that their school mascot?
Might be. Yep. 65 is from Ohio. 74 is from Pennsylvania. So 84.
That's amazing. Well, just a quick question: Who's the main competition for Spencer Lee now? As you look,
Spencer Lee
himself.
There's nobody.
Okay, because what's interesting is when I get feeds, even on YouTube, when it suggests things, I get Spencer Lee videos all the time.
Yeah,
like it's like, they're predicting good things.
What I would say to answer your question, it's probably Pat Glory from Princeton.
Okay,
that's probably the. I shouldn't say it. Nick Piccinini from Oklahoma State pinned him last year. So, those are probably the two. Oklahoma State, Nick Piccinini, that was, I don't know if you ever saw that match, but that was.
We'll have to have a deep fantasy talk before we have the draft, before the D1, so I can take my notes, because I'd like to go in there and not get my butt kicked by Schumacher every year.
Yeah. I would say at 125, it's the three that are going to be in there. It's going to be those three. It'll be Spencer, of course, is the far and away favorite. But then the next two are Piccinini and we can't forget last year's runner-up from University of Virginia,
Mueller.
Yeah. So those are the top four. I kind of dismiss everybody else after you watch Spencer.
I remember last names. I'm really bad at that, but all of a sudden you start pulling the first names too.
Yep. No, that would be, those are the top four, and Pitch is dangerous. He pinned Spencer in the duel last year, and it wasn't a fluke. That's one of those things like, hey, I see something, we've seen something, and John Smith is a pretty good wrestling coach, and so it's not impossible. I mean, that they're going to wrestle that whole bracket.
Right.
They're not going to give it a national championship now.
No, some of our pinners, scary wrestlers, those guys that have that extra.
Yep.
Just different than being a guy that can control a match and let people score, but those guys that can pin. I'm trying to think of the Minnesota wrestler with the little kick flip a couple of years ago, the little guy.
Oh, Carr.
Yeah.
No.
Both of you and I will think of it here in a second.
Yeah.
But just look at me almost on his back, and he's flipping over. Oh man, somebody else will probably bring it up before we do on this side.
Yeah, Dylan.
Oh, Dylan Ness.
Yeah. Dylan and Jason Ness. But yeah, Dylan is the one who was the pin.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Oh, I can.
It's that way too. Well, it's interesting. Got a wrestler at Century that he's just a freshman. It's Clay, his brother.
Oh.
And he is scary because he's really strong, and he's got a couple of goofy moves where he throws people on their back. And
he's strong, so they aren't getting back off. Yeah.
He's out of position, but he's dangerous, and so he's going to be fun over the next few years. So it's interesting. Same thing when it comes to that.
Yeah.
This stuff, Northern Wrestling. Tell us what happened there. I know we could talk D1 until our faces turn blue, but let's talk Northern and what they happened this last weekend.
Northern State made the trek up to Minot to duel Minot State. Minot's always got a pretty good crowd. It was kind of exciting. We had a bus that brought a bunch of people from Carrington to cheer on Walker Carr. Was our lone Carrington wrestler, but they were obviously cheering on the whole team. And Northern, it was Minot State's senior night, so they had a couple of seniors that they honored. Dina Ravello at 125 pounds is their ranked wrestler at 125 pounds, and he looked good. He looked, Northern's Fisher he's a Sioux Falls kid. A Rapid City kid. Really wrestled him tough, as long as he could, and ended up losing that match. But Dina Ravello looked good on senior night, and he looks good every other day. He's a good tough kid, and so they won that match there, which is 133 pounds. Dane Morton from Northern come out and got a victory there. Looked pretty good. Got a pinfall. 141 pounds. Kenny Jones. I keep talking about Kenny every week, I think, but Kenny went out, gave up the first takedown, and then ended up winning, I think, 16-2 maybe, or something like that. Okay. He looked pretty good. I gave up a takedown right away, and I gave him a little grief about it afterwards, but he looked pretty good. 149, Northern did not have their starter in, had a little touch of some sickness. So that was that's always concerning when you make a travel like that anywhere in the NSIC, and this has happened to us before at Minot. Like I said when we talked to Coach 40, those guys, every one of them bring it every minute of every match, and they're scrapping. So Adam DeBoer of Bismarck High fame was stepped in there at 149 pounds and got the pin.
And he's sporting a little bit of a beard.
Oh, yeah.
Surprised me. I saw him this last weekend.
Yeah, he actually looked really good. He came after the Minot wrestler pretty hard and ended up he's scrappy. He likes to fight. And I tell you what, that's a kid there that I think is enjoying wrestling more than he probably has in a lot of years. I thought in the last, it was a little surprising to me when he made the decision he was going to wrestle in college. I was a little surprised by it. I thought he was kind of, I don't know. Just kind of putting in the time, right? It's a lot of work, and these kids they wrestle for a lot of years, and he loves it at Northern State. He loves the program. He's big, he's part of a, it's a big family for him, and it's great. And his parents come to matches. They come when he's not wrestling. They come when he is wrestling. And it's really been a lot of support. So it was great to see it. It was great to see it happen. He had some family there. So he looked good. 157 pounds. Walker Carr wrestled at 157 against Zach Berry. Zach Berry is another senior for Minot. I think Walker's maybe 2-0 against him in the past, and then took it to an overtime match, and Zach Berry come out on the top. So good for the Northern or the Minot wrestler. And a senior at home, tough for us to watch, for Walker, but he fought hard. And then 165 was was kind of a back and forth affair. Two guys. So 165, our normal 157 pounder, James Burks, has bumped up to 165 while Billy's been out hurt.
Right.
And he's a Greco All-American, so he kind of likes to be in some of those upper body ties. Well, Minot's Nathan Baca likes to wrestle up there too. So we saw, I think it was 13-11 maybe. By the time it was all said and done with James Burke coming out on top. So that was a very exciting match. A couple of times, I mean, there was a lot of people on their back at different times. So that was pretty exciting. And for Northern, that was a nice win to come out on top of. That Nathan Bach is tough, and you know, we've seen him a few times. So 65-74, redshirt sophomore Tanner Weiss. He's a Forest Lake, Minnesota kid. Come out with a victory there. He looked pretty good. 84. Minot's got a transfer that just kind of came in right at the semester break from Cal State Bakersfield. So that's a D1 transfer against Marcus Placade, who's a Minneapolis kid originally, ended up wrestling at Iowa Community College. And he was a junior college transfer for Northern this year. So we had a D1 transfer on one side and a junior college transfer on the other, and they kind of met in the middle at the D2 duel, and they it was good match, but Marcus came out on top. He was I think a little under the weather. Also, we were a little nervous about some of those things, but he did come out on that match. So that was good. And Marcus is ranked, depending on what ranking you look at, but somewhere in the the top 12 in the country.
Yeah, he's about 10 last I
saw. Yeah. And so 84, 97. Diego Gallegos from Northern came out with a pretty dominating win. He looked pretty good. Diego is a real good, solid wrestler. He's a redshirt, or he's true junior. He never did redshirt. He looked really good. And then at heavyweight, our heavyweight was under the weather a little bit, and they were willing to wrestle him if they had to, but the duel was pretty in hand, so they did forfeit to Jordan Will.
Right, they're ranked wrestler.
Yeah, and so that's their other ranked wrestler. They got one at 25, one at heavyweight, and Jordan's. I mean, if like I said, I know that he is. I've watched him wrestle a lot of years, and he's I'm a fan, and I knew that Caleb was a little bit sick going up, but he made the trip and he stepped on the scale, and if we would have needed him, he would have stepped out there. But I looked over at about 184 pounds, and I kind of looked at the person sitting next to me and said, I believe we're forfeiting at heavyweight because the duel's in hand, and it's not a match. Sure. At that point, so you don't want to wrestle Jordan Will when you're not 100%. That's a recipe for injury, I think. But
more news. We'll have the head coach on, I think, probably Sunday. Rocky Burkett will come on, and we'll get to ask him some tough questions.
Yeah, great.
Saw him down in Aberdeen, and he was scared to be interviewed by you. He told me.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's making him nervous. No, Rocky's done a great job down there, and obviously I've sung his praises in the past. That program's come from, and we'll talk about it Sunday, but it's come from a long ways, and there's a lot of history there, and I think we're starting to build on it, and we've seen these teams are going to try to start putting some of their own history in the books, and we've talked about this conference in the past, and the top 4 teams in this conference over the years have been St. Cloud, Mankato, Upper Iowa, and Augustana, and the rest of us, which are Minot, Southwest Minnesota State, Moorhead, Mary, and Northern are trying to beat each other up and then trying to make it up into that next level. And last year Moorhead was able to, or Northern was able to beat Augustana in a duel. They did lose to them this year, but it was a duel that probably should have been won in my mind, but it just kind of fell flat. And I shouldn't say should have won, could have won. Augie came out and won it. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So it's interesting to watch them in this conference, kind of battle to try to get up into that upper echelon. And I think And the next few weeks, I think Northern has Mankato next week. This week, Northern has Dickinson, so that'll be kind of an interesting interstate rival.
Okay.
And then next week they'll have make a trip down to Mankato to kind of which might be the second or the third best team in the conference. And I'll just kind of how that works is we've talked about how good St. Cloud is. Well, St. Cloud and Mankato wrestled this weekend, and St. Cloud won 9 of 10 matches. So they're pretty good, and they don't and they wrestle. And what's interesting is they don't always. Their guys, when we talk about we're looking at some of these high school guys, and they're getting these 50 matches. There's they might have at St. Cloud, they might have 3 or 4 different people. Well, 4 maybe is enough, but they probably have 2 or 3 guys that wrestle duels all season long, different weight class at the same weight class. So guys stay pretty fresh and probably hungry. They know, and they don't seem to mind, right? Because they'll know. I mean, they kind of know who's going to be in the lineup when it comes regional time. I do know that a couple of years ago they had a little bit of friction at one weight class where one guy was a starter all year long and lost to wrestle off right at the end, and one guy's a senior and ends up losing out to a freshman and not isn't the next week. Actually, this has happened to a couple weight classes there.
Okay.
One guy, returning national champ, gets beat the last week of the season and wrestle off, and the next week he's trying to prep that guy for the regional tournament. Stuff that tough pill to swallow. But they, as a team, I think they stay pretty tight knit. So, since the last time we talked, I think kind of an interesting situation, kind of what we talked about before with these teams wrestling duels at high schools. Moorhead traveled to Pierce, Minnesota, which is the hometown of one of maybe even a couple, but one for sure of St. Cloud's top wrestlers. And they wrestled. Moorhead and St. Cloud wrestled the duel at Pierce High School last Wednesday or Thursday night. So, and like we probably, and St. Cloud looked pretty good. I think they won 9 of 10 matches there too. But that's kind of what's happened here, I guess.
If you want to classify qualifying for Northern, could they qualify 4 or 5?
That would be awful nice. I think they could. I hate to pick the ones, but I think they could qualify.
Don't give us any weight classes, but just.
I know, but I got to think about them without giving them. They know who they are, right? I think we qualify that one there. I think they could. I actually think they have 6 that have a really good chance.
Okay.
To think that all 6 will do it on the same day, I think is a lot to ask. So if we ended up with 4 of the 6, it'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's and I kind of look at that in a lot of ways. I've seen a lot of these guys wrestle a lot of matches over the years, and there's when you look at if you just looked at the regional rankings, you could probably pick the ones that are third or. And I would even say the ones that are 4th or less, right? That are ranked 1st through 4th probably have a pretty good chance because the top 3 qualify. So if you're the guy that's ranked 4th, you probably got a chance in there too.
Right.
I think that's. I think they got 6 that are probably ranked in that category.
Right. Okay. We're running at an hour 20 already. I know NDSU is wrestling Utah Valley tonight.
Yep, that duel is probably just getting over. I'm probably have to go watch that right now. So,
in fact, it's kind of been in my background. I forgot I had it back there, and so I clicked over to it, and I should update the score, but I know NDSU just won a match. It looks like maybe 82 or 8 probably. I'd have to look, but no, there's so much great wrestling out there. I know NDSU's been winning their duels. They've got a couple wins in a row, and got some great wrestling out there. I mean, there's so many good things that you can see, and I definitely say don't miss it, guys. Go out and check out the wrestling.
Yeah, NDSU had a great duel this weekend already against Northern Colorado. Kind of came out and had a pretty dominant performance against Northern Colorado, so that was good to see.
No, Mitch just made a comment here.
Yes, I think you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He is absolutely.
Okay.
He was also the Moorhead High coach for a number of years before he went back to Piers. Yep, that is true. That is true.
We got some knowledgeable people. Thank you, Mitch, for coming on tonight. Ed, another good one. What is Moorhead program like? Like as a program?
Moorhead State, you were thinking what Minnesota State?
Yep.
Moorhead. They've got a lot of numbers. They've got some good young guys in the room. They've got maybe some, I think one of the best coaches in the country, named Chris Nelson, and they are. I think they've got one guy for sure that was a national return, kind of a national qualifier level guy that got injured in his redshirt this year. Was a 125 pounder last year. They've got they got Mason Schultz in the room, which to me, Mason's
he's ranked.
He's ranked. Well, I think he may have dropped out, but he's definitely ranked in the.
He was number 7 last I knew.
Yeah, and Mason could go on a run and win 3-4 matches in a row at the regional tournament. So they've got a handful of guys out there. They're 100. Well, they've got a pretty good 57 pounder that this week wrestled up at 65, and I don't know if that's something that we're going to see in the future. Braden Ortloff, he's been pretty good 57 pounder. If he comes up to 65, I guess we'll see how that turns out. They've got pretty good heavyweight. Jordan Magnuson, the Valley City kid that made it to the national tournament last year, started out the season ranked. I'm not sure if he may have dropped out of the rankings, but he kind of, that's a little bit of an unfortunate thing. Jordan plays football also. So he comes out of the football season ranked, and then he starts wrestling right away, and he may not be quite ready. So you lose a match or two before you're really in your stride. So that we're going to find out at the regional.
They do have a great coaching staff. I've talked to them many times too there.
Yeah.
If somebody, I know Ed's got a boy that's going to be is a senior, and so probably looking for a place if he wants to wrestle. That would not be a bad place at all.
Right here is pretty good. Oh, I'm taking. Yeah. No,
I will have my green screen up soon, and we'll match up.
No, and Chris Nelson is a super coach and a superhuman, and they got some other good guys in the room, and they've produced very recently. They've produced some awful good wrestlers. Blake Bosch has obviously came into the room good and got better there, and so they've got the makings of a team that can make some jumps. So you surely couldn't go wrong there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Pick a school that feels right. That the people the people that are in the program feel like it's somewhere where you belong, and it's somewhere you're going to be for the next 4 or 5 years. And I just don't think you can go wrong. I think if there's one thing we can do is try to get more of these local North Dakota, South Dakota wrestlers, in college rooms, and whether they're in the starting lineup or not in the starting lineup, their lives are better down the road for it. They seem to do better as student athletes than we do as just just as students. I think there's a lot of growth, and in a lot of cases it might put a little money in the towards the tuition too. So that's something I guess we're going to probably start harping on a little bit more, or I am anyway. That'll be my soapbox. But
I would agree.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
thanks for the question.
It says right there, we're visiting them on Friday. Awesome.
Great. Good luck.
Oh, good luck with that. Definitely. Well, guys, we're going to call it quits for the night. I know we're at the hour 20. Bill, any final words? My final words are always the same. Go promote wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do a show on Wednesday. I know Bill will probably be busy, but I've got several coaches on the line. Basically, they're trying to find the right time. So I'm probably trying to get Tom in again from Rapid City, but I'm trying to get a couple old school coaches from South Dakota to hop in.
Yeah, awesome.
And so if people are out there watching, tell them to come watch some of these. I tell you what, it's fun. We can talk wrestling. And I love with the questions. Great job tonight with people asking some questions, filling us in. That really adds to the show, guys. More people that do that, the better.
Yeah, that really helps. I love to see those questions come in. I think it's something that it gives us a little more insight of what everybody is wondering. What kind of things we can answer, and we may not know everything. I know I sure don't, but that's the kind of stuff. If we don't know those answers, then those are the questions of the next. Those are the next week that we'll know more. And if you ask it, and we don't answer it, then Mitch will know the answer, and he'll chime in.
Mitch will know the answer. He's my go-to.
Yeah. So what I would say, my word for the week is, if you're within 100 miles of Aberdeen, South Dakota, come to the Duel Wednesday night. That'll be a lot of fun. It is senior night at Aberdeen at Northern State. Come there.
What time does that start?
I believe it's 7:00. Generally, always at 7:00. So that'll be fun. They got the new mat this year.
Vogelai still announced.
Vogelai is on there. You know what? I'm going to say this. Vogelai has been doing the TV, for a long time, and you can watch every one of those matches streaming, and probably has the best streaming of any program in the conference. So, and Rich has done a lot of it, but I have noticed two young guys have started doing a lot of that commentary, and that is Paxton Muse and Josh Moore. Jamestown wrestler and an Aberdeen wrestler that both wrestled for Northern State, and they do a great job. And I didn't watch the last one, but I saw both of them were there, and so I never went back and watched the live stream.
You don't have to watch it if you're there live.
Yeah, I'm almost always live. I mean, but a lot of times I'll go back and watch them anyway because I might miss something. But they do a good job. Rich always does a good job, but it's been fun to see those two young guys kind of jump in there and get involved, So if you're within 100 miles, go. If you're not, watch it on live stream. And then the other thing I would say is I won't be on again before the weekend. Go out and get all of those regional duels. You will get to see a lot of great matches. You'll get to see probably, to me, what the best part of this sport is, just like what we watched in that duel on Friday night. Duels are really the lifeblood of this sport, and you'll get to see a lot of competitive matches. Both, all four regions around the state. There's going to be one close enough to you that you get to see it. And then I want to say one more thing: is we've got a former North Dakota wrestler, state champ, Bridger Anderson. He's now a rodeo cowboy. He's been a rodeo cowboy his whole life, but he's a college rodeo cowboy, and he's down. I've been doing great at the Fort Worth Stock Show. So it's kind of fun to watch that. I kind of watched Bridger grow up in this sport, and of course he's a cousin to Garrett Jangula.
Okay.
His uncle. He's got his uncle is in the Hall of Fame, and so. That's kind of fun to watch, and got some wrestling ties and outside of the sport now, but he's one of us. He was a state champ for Carrington and
one more thing before we do cut out. Tell us a little bit else what you do. Tell us about your bird dog site a little bit. I would like to just people. Give you a little. Some other things that you do on the side. I think this would be something wonderful to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I've had more than one passion in my life, and it's besides wrestling. And it's bird dogs. I've kind of raised and competed with and hunted over pointing dogs, for not as long as I've been around wrestling, but pretty close. And so, a lot of years ago, I kind of started doing the same thing that we're doing now, right? I started just trying to promote the sport. Because it's a sport of field trialing that is, we talk about wrestling as being a niche sport. Well, bird dog field trialing is really a niche sport, and we're always trying to grow it. So about the same time you started the Dakota Grappler, I started a website, that was dedicated just to bird dogs and to field trialing, and that's kind of grown throughout the years and my interest has never waned. my effort has probably waned and grown over time just because of my other, what it takes for, to raise a family and to work a job. But yeah, it's just one of, this is kind of a similar situation, right? We're always just trying to, promote these things that we have passions of. And that is one that has kind of stuck with me for a lot of years. And it's, not just me, it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of, I'll tell you one thing that's interesting. When you go around this, I go around this country and I talk to guys that are bird dog guys, field trailers.
Yep.
These guys are they're die-hard competitors. And the number of them that were high school or college wrestlers would blow your mind. I made really good friends with a guy probably in the late 90s. And we were at a field trial together. He was from Iowa. And I had I guess it would have been the late 90s, early 2000s. I was coaching at Superior High School in Superior, Wisconsin. And I had a wrestling t-shirt on. And he came up to me, and we'd met each other before, but had never really spent a lot of time talking. And he said, "Oh, you're a wrestler." I said, "Yeah, well, he's got cauliflower ear. I mean, there's no doubt that he was wrestling. He's from Iowa." So I didn't think much of it, except for that he's a wrestler. I mean, he's from Iowa. Of course he's a wrestler, right? Well, his name is Scott Morningstar. He's Ryan Morningstar's dad, who is the assistant coach at Iowa. And at that time, Ryan was in, he was maybe not in high school yet, but he was getting up there, right? Boy, we spent a lot of, we went to a lot of field trials together and spent just a lot of time talking about wrestling. And Scott was a national champion at Northern Iowa. So he, and that happens a lot. I mean,
that is awesome.
Yeah. And I've got people that I'm friends with all around the country. And a lot of them, I'll put stuff out on Facebook about wrestling or whatever. And it's amazing how the people that start commenting, or send me messages, "Hey, geez, I wrestled for, a college in Ohio, or I wrestled for, I was a coach for 15 years at such and such, college or high school." And it happens all the time. So it's really something that kind of goes back and forth. So my passion for that is about the same as my passion for wrestling, to be honest with you. I only have my family. Those are the three that I have. So
that is awesome. We'll talk about that some more, because I'm so interested. Never did ever have a dog, except just a dog as I grew up, just a golden retriever. But the bird dogging idea, and Corey Shaw, they do their guide service down in Oak and have some pretty expensive dogs, and and it's a passion, it's a love, it's something that people cherish their time with their dogs, and so.
Oh, absolutely,
definitely.
Yep, absolutely. Well, yeah,
there's our final talk for tonight.
Yeah, that could take another 3 hours, but just go watch wrestling and have some fun, and reach out to us if you got any topics that you want to have covered. There's things that people want to know that we might be able to help them with or talk about, and let's just support the kids out there at the high school level,
college level. Yep.
College level. The more we can attend these matches, I think the more that you guys enjoy it, and just go have some fun.
Definitely. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to call it quits. Good job. Thanks again, everybody. We'll check you on the next show, Dakota Grappler Live. Thanks, everybody.